Thank you for joining. Today, we're going to be discussing reconciling relationships with God and prayer and how those things kind of intermingle. Like, if you have issues with praying and believing in prayer, it's probably because of that root relationship. Um, but also how that all ties into building your spiritual war chest, because everything is spiritual warfare. And when I say spiritual warfare, I don't want people to get scared like it means people are actively casting spells or doing something against you or us. Even though sometimes that can be the case, most times spiritual warfare just means negative forces out there in the world. Um, I know with Christianity, it makes things look like good versus evil, but in African spiritual practices and a lot of indigenous practices, nothing is necessarily good or evil. Things are just what they are. Like, they both exist in nature, the good and the bad. Um, and spiritual warfare just means we're not allowing that negative forces to affect us in our lives. But if we're not strong in our spirituality, those negative forces can grow, they can strengthen, and they can really, really, really affect us in a negative way. Um, They show up in sickness. That's spirit. Things like that can be a spiritual warfare. Financial issues, spiritual warfare. Um, and if you are a spiritual person that does a lot of spiritual work, you will oftentimes get, if you're a public figure even, you will oftentimes get a lot of spiritual energy thrown at you. So again, it's not necessarily the negative forces, like people throwing spells at you. It's just that energy of good and bad that already exists in the world. So it's 6:01. I'm going to dive into it. We're talking about reconciling our relationship with God. And I am going to talk about my relationship first and how I learned to hate God in a sense, especially as a child, because if you grew up in the South, especially, your mama tells you, everybody tells you to pray, pray. Pray to God, do this, ask God. God, my mama would always tell me God listens to children, old folks, and babies. So as a child, when I was going through all of this crazy stuff, like being um, sexually abused, being not having like an active father due to drug addiction, and as well as just we came from like a impoverished background. It's like I'm praying for all these things to change, and it's not happening. So after a while, I got real, real angry with God. And especially too in the South, people talk about God as being a he. So I was like, all right, then I'm angry with God. I'm angry with this father in my life that's not coming around and tells me that he will. Because at this time, no one really told me he was on drugs. He just wasn't there. And I'm angry at the man who's like essaying me. I'm angry at all this stuff. And then y'all telling me that this God is a he. I'm angry at that too. So for me, I feel like because oftentimes we say God is a man or use the he pronoun, it can subconsciously cause us to have a lot of hatred for God, um, or a lot of resentment, I'll say, for God. And so over time, I just told myself, like, before I even left fifth grade, I was like, I'm not praying to God no more. I didn't tell my mama or anything because that would have been a thing. But I was like, I'm not praying to God. I don't believe in God. This isn't real. And I went through my life around that. Like, I'm just gonna work hard, make my way, and it'll all work out. And so yeah, so it's just like those things kind of happened. And then I was successful. I was the smartest girl, one of the smartest girls in school. I was the president of everything. I was doing I became a mediator in my school because everybody looked up to me. And then one day something tragic happened. And something tragic happened. A car accident happened where a girl was driving. Well, she was in the car with her boyfriend. They were arguing. And she hit the steering wheel. they lost control of the vehicle, and she ended up not being alive, becoming unalived. And that was a thing. And it became a huge thing in our school. And as a mediator, I was called upon everybody, and then they asked to pray, me to pray. The person that doesn't believe in God, but I live in the South. Everybody does, and prayer is like one of those things that like it's like second nature to everybody. And I'm like, and I couldn't pray. I couldn't do it. I was the girl that could do everything in school, sing, speak, whatever you needed, but I could not pray. And that is when I began to like, all right, so what is this really, this relationship with God that I need to be diving into it? Do I need to dive into it? I don't know. Um, so time goes on. I go to college, and this is my first time being away from my small city, Albany, Georgia. I moved to Atlanta, and I decide, because of a lot of reasons, that I want to develop this relationship with God. And long story less long, that's when I began to communicate with God, not necessarily in a pray the way that people traditionally pray. Like I would literally say, "Dear God," and pray. Because I was a journaler, I would journal a lot. So that was my way to communicate with God. Like that's how I began to develop my relationship. And so I'm gonna pause there because I said a lot, and I want y'all to kind of reflect on y'all's relationship with God. Um, who is God to you? Like, what were you told about God that formulated your opinion that maybe made you feel a disconnect? Um, and who do you identify God with now in your life? So I'm gonna set a little timer and play some music in the background while y'all journal about that. Thank you, Shad. Winter brings on reflection, the spirit of reflection. So I was like, let's get us to thinking. If you feel led to write an essay, go ahead. We're gonna have about 2 more minutes. All right, we're coming to a close on the journaling piece. If anyone wants to share anything about what they wrote, feel free to put it in the chat. But one of the first things that helped me kind of reconcile my relationship with God is defining God first and foremost. Because like I told y'all, it was like in the South, God was a man. He, him, all of that. And so when I began to really deconstruct from those beliefs, I was like, all right, God is source. God is creator of the universe, creator of all things. And once I started even further in my journey, because I practice Ifa Isheshe. It's a Ifa Orisha tradition from Yoruba. So it's exactly what they practice in Nigeria. And for them, they have a word for God, it's Olodumare. And that means owner of the heavens. So, all right. So God is the owner of the heavens. And they don't have a gender for God either. So that aligns with me and my beliefs in way more than how we're viewing it in Christianity. And so once I began to deconstruct that, I was able to truly define that relationship, to know that it's the most essential relationship to have in your war chest because it is the foundation. It is what's going to ground us and root us in whatever we're doing. Because if you don't believe in the source, then you can't truly manifest anything. You can't truly believe in yourself. You can't truly believe in what you're working in. So it's like, even if you may not be religious, you don't have to be religious to believe that we come from some sort of source, that there's something out there greater than what we are. And so that was helpful for me to just understand and walk in. And so once I did that, I was like, okay, cool. My prayers began to naturally become more real because I began to believe that I was praying to something real, that my prayers were being heard. When I was a little girl, I was feeling hurt that my prayers were not being heard. So I was like, I'm not praying no more. But once I began to understand, like, okay, what is prayer for? I began to become more realistic because the things that I was praying for had to be deconstructed by systems and all of that jazz. And that's not necessarily a real thing. Let's see. I struggle more with the name. I was raised to view God as a man, and I've learned to accept source universe as a woman. Because women birth life, my practice is unique because my intuition aligns with more shamanic beliefs. Ashe. Ashe. That resonates with me. I definitely, and that's the thing about it too, is that when it becomes to our practice and when we begin to decolonize, we can hear somebody else's walk and not feel triggered to believe that we all have to believe in the same thing. Because at the end of the day, it's really all the same, what we're saying. um, Source and giving birth. That's exactly what it is. And so for me, um, getting back to the story, it's like, all right, so I'm about to pray. How do I want to become about prayer? I began to naturally develop this relationship that was a structured, and I began to see a pattern. Um, Pray, say my gratitudes first when I pray. Then after I do my gratitudes, do ask for forgiveness, and then I'll ask for what I want. That's when I'm doing like making offerings or just doing like a normal prayer. And then there was another form of prayer that I realized that I needed to do when it came to wanting to manifest something. I didn't need to be in the energy of begging. I needed to declare. And if you go on my notes, you'll see that I put a free offering up of like a declaration of what I declare. Like I declare victory, I declare stability, I declare peace of mind in my prayers. It's like telling spirit and communicate with source, communicating with the energy that's surrounding me, what I want, and aligning with that, doing the work to align with that. That's a prayer. And then even in the Yoruba tradition, I want to read this prayer. It's a prayer to Ori. And next week, we're going to do Ori and ancestors because God, Ori, ancestors, then Orisha. But we're just going to talk about God, Ori, and ancestors in this series. Rev Evelyn talked about this in the lab before. I'm loving this conversation. Oh, nice. Nice. I'm glad to see we're aligned. But But yes, I'm going to read this Ori prayer. And in this prayer, the Yoruba, they speak a lot about spiritual warfare in their prayers. And again, when I said in the very beginning of this live, it's not necessarily people casting spells on you. It's understanding that in nature, good and bad naturally exists. And spiritual warfare just means I don't want the negative to come and penetrate me because we're all susceptible of that. We're all prone to that if we don't have our good spiritual boundaries up. And this series is just helping us to get those boundaries up. But first, we need to get our relationship right with the source and define what that means for us. And then next week, we can talk about connecting with our higher selves and connecting with our ancestors. And our ancestors are our gatekeepers and they lead us to our destiny. Yes, Oria's destiny. So I'm about to read this prayer. Um, and it is a prayer that you can say to your Ori that they use as well. And you'll just see how they're going to talk about negative forces and how this prayer is. So it says, Ori, preserve and nurture my physical body. Expand my consciousness to universal awareness. Shower me with spiritual wealth as well as material abundance. Subjugate all of the forces of oppression and remove all avenues leading to poverty. Bring to me unity of my community. Protect me from the anger of the witches, wizards, demons, ghosts, all harmful spirits and evil people. Save me from the warfare of sorcerers. Guard me against the spells of magicians. Defeat all those who would dare to spiritually tie me up or bind me. Destroy the power and the influence of the Ajay, which is the witches, wishing to use negative magic against me. Destroy the power and the influence of the Ileri and the Adrabon, negative forces, who would dare to rise up against me. Reveal and remove from within me all outer, inner, and secret causes hindering my happiness and contentment. Ori, I call upon your spiritual protection against all mishaps and misfortune in my life. Help me to know the truth in all things and show me how the truth should be applied to bring about universal order. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Oh. And so, if you notice in this prayer, it talks about material abundance and not being in poverty twice. That's because in Yoruba tradition, that's a form of sickness. Not having money, not having goodness is a form of sickness. So, and it's a form of negative forces. So if you're experiencing that, that's a sign of spiritual warfare and allowing that to penetrate. Now, of course, there are seasons of building up and things that shatter down that needs to be shattered, and finances and income may be a casualty, but and I should say, that's when you really have to get spiritually aligned, because when you're in a season of a lot of change and I don't want to say craziness happen, but destruction happening, it's easy to become susceptible to negative forces coming to you. And so this is one of those prayers, and this is a lot of traditionally how a lot of the prayers in Oriki and Odu kind of speak about things. Some of us in our walk in our path are naturally prone to having enemies. And enemies is anyone who is trying to get you away from your destiny. Again, it doesn't mean somebody that's throwing spells or casting spells on you. It can be somebody easily, if you were supposed to go right today, this person trying to get you to go left. That person is an enemy. That person is a part of your spiritual war that you need to fight and yeah. So this prayer helps. I'm going to try to type it out. I'm not sure how these live videos work, but if it allows me to like put it in there, I'll put it there. But we're going to go more deep into Ori and ancestors next week so that you can see what I mean. It'll all tie in, because one thing about Ori is that it allows in your blessings to come in, and it can also allow in negative forces to come in. So that's why this prayer to Ori is what it is. Not to laugh, but yeah. But that's one of the beautiful things about the tradition that I love. It breaks down those things really in a scientific way. So what I want to do, like I talk about the different types of prayers. I talked about how I tend to pray, like my regular nightly and daily prayers are like gratitude, ask for gratitude, ask for forgiveness, and then I ask for whatever it is I want. When you're in the live, don't automatically publish it, and you can go back and make a newsletter. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Um, but yes, I right now want to give y'all the opportunity to write y'all's own prayer based off of what we've talked about, based off of like your reflections on God, based off of what you need right now. So yeah, write your own prayers. I'm gonna give us some time and do it so that you can believe in it. Like you know what you're going through more than anyone knows. Write a prayer specifically to God, to your Ori, about what it is that you want right now or need right now, what you're deserving of right now. So I'm gonna put a little time, turn the music up so we can write. Sure. Um, some tips for me is that like depending on who you're praying to, like if you're praying to your ancestors, if you're praying to your Ori, if you're praying to an Orisha, you have to be very careful about how you go to the Orisha, not out of fear. But if you're praying to God and Ori, since that's what we're talking about here, gratitude first. Always lead with gratitude. That's what I always say. Um, you want to pray to your Ori? Okay, cool. Lead with gratitude and and be mindful that your Ori is the one that allows blessings in and keeps negative forces away. So The negative forces that you know that are happening in your life, I know a bit of it, like, pray about that intentionally. And any blessings that you're talking about wanting to bring in, be specific. And your already destiny, all right? So it's literally your path. You can pray about those things, the support that you want on your path. If you're wanting your Ori to give you clarity on anything, bring something in your way to or give you a sign, now's the time to do that. And the reason why I want us to write it down is because, as you can see, this is a prayer that's written down that many people say to that Ori. Is you can come back to this prayer again and again and again. Does that help? We have about 2 more minutes left. Okay. How's everybody doing? I will say this, if you're enjoying this topic and as well as the upcoming topics that's going to be coming up, I do have a collective space that I'm going to be opening up in February. You can see more about it on my website, MandisaMosi.com. It's also in my most recent newsletter. I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. So I'm going to share a prayer that I wrote in 2022. This is one I put in my notebook, and I didn't necessarily come back to it, but I can see how what I wrote down has come into fruition right now. For those of you who don't know, I'm a cult survivor, and I was in one for about 7 years. And when I wrote this, I was still in that cult, and as well as a very toxic job. So I'm going to read it and I'm just going to read it. So I say, Ibashe is a greeting that we use before we say the name of a energy that we're praying to. So, Ibashe Olodumare, Ibashe Ori, Ibashe to all of my elevated Egungun ancestors. I greet you and I thank you. I give thanks for the grace and mercy you have bestowed upon me throughout my life. I give thanks to all the ways you have assisted me and I did not know. I ask forgiveness for all the times I have not shown gratitude, for all the times I have been unrighteously selfish, and for all the times I have disrespected you both knowingly and unknowingly. I ask for your redemption and deliverance so that I may be accountable for all of my actions and inactions. Orimopoe, Ori, I call on you. I ask that you allow all of my blessings from heaven to rain on me. And I give thanks that I wear you as my crown. I pray for liberation, spiritual liberation that impacts my ability to sense spirit and awaken my gifts. Spiritual liberation from all of the trauma that my lineage has endured. Please free us. I ask for mental liberation from the chains that keep me confined to a life of servitude. Please allow me to respect myself enough to break free from all personas that I have inherited externally and from those that I have given to myself. I grant myself the permission to be myself. Emotional liberation. Please do not allow anyone to control my emotions or my energy. Please support me in my quest to respond appropriately and allow me to never react out of character. Lastly, I ask for physical liberation and to be a good steward of all spiritual and physical blessings. May I break free from the matrix, which is what I call work, and all of its controlling fear tactics. Please grant me financial freedom and autonomy over my own being. Please protect me protect my family, and keep us in good health. Please allow us to always experience Iray, just blessings, and to always experience Alafia, peace, good health, and overall well-being. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. So that was a prayer that I prayed in 2022 that I wrote down in this book and that I haven't necessarily picked up since then. But I can see automatically those things coming into fruition in my life. So when you write down things and you pray, even if you write down things, like Erykah Badu has this really great quote that I like. I'm paraphrasing it because I don't remember it verbatim. But she says, when you write down things with real paper and real pen, things begin to get real. Meaning things can manifest in that way. Spelling is spells, I think is what she says. And it's true. Like when you begin to, I write down my prayers every AM and every PM. And I begin to develop that relationship. I write down my affirmations every AM. And I'm beginning to develop that relationship with real paper and real pen. Like I use this pen like as a fountain pen with real ink in it. I'm very particular about what type of paper I purchase and what I write on because I want to bring in goodness into my life. And in this prayer, I ask to be liberated from things. I'm now free from the cult. I ask to get removed from the job that I was working that happened in a way that was healthy and wasn't like embarrassing or anything like that. And it's like now that I'm in this spiritual thing, it's like I'm not devoid of struggle, like or hardships. Like things may be difficult, but things are in alignment because they what I prayed for. And that's another thing that I love about indigenous cultures is that like even if you're going through difficult times, it can be what you're supposed to be going through, if that makes sense. And what I ask in here is for emotional liberation. And I ask for the ability to respond appropriately. If this were to happen to me a year from ago, I would not be able to handle not knowing where rent was coming from or not knowing if I'm going to have all my bills. Like I'm now in the position where I can handle it emotionally and mentally. And I can respond appropriately where needed. And I can uphold those boundaries. So mind your words, know that they are powerful, even if you're in a situation or you've been made to believe that they aren't powerful. And I would say track even your relationship with your prayers and know that even if you forgot to say it, the fact that you wrote it down is still working for you, right? That whole saying that people have is that like the prayers that my grandmamas prayed and what my mama prayed, they still work on me. That's true. Ashe. Like the idea of writing down your prayers. Yes. My life really began to change and shift. My relationships really began to change and shift when I began to write them down. Like you can feel it more, if that makes sense. At least for me. So, does anybody have any more questions? That's why you journal so much? Nice. Not. We're going to wrap up and I'm going to lead us in a prayer. I'm feeling led to lead us in prayer. I've been called a prayer warrior once or twice in my life. I went from a girl who hated prayer to being called that. Um, so I'm going to leave us in a prayer since that's what this topic is about. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate you. And so I'm going to pray and then I will post this. I'm going to try to put this, a re-prayer in it as well. And that'll be it. Ibashe Olodumare, Ibashe to the collective ancestors that are here today. I greet you and I thank you. I thank you for this space. I thank you for the beings who have shown up today. I thank you for those who will see this and watch this after the fact. And I pray that each and every one gets something out of it in return. I pray that it can be something that lives with them and that they can take with them throughout their journey. I pray that it allows whatever they wrote down, it becomes magnified and amplified within their life. I pray that any doubt, any fear, any worry gets cast to the side, and I pray that only their beliefs and their truths remain. I pray that they begin to see the power in their work and the power in their ashe and the power in their words and the power in their ability to write and to manifest the life that they are deserving of living. I pray that we are all protected from Ajagun forces, any negative forces that are against us, that may not want the truth to be told, that may not want the word to get out, that may not want the beauty of prayer to be shared with this world. I pray that it all gets cast aside and returned to sender. I pray that you begin to allow us all to experience the beauty of life, both in nature and both in material things. I pray that our health gets restored to its optimal state. And I pray that we are protected mentally as well as spiritually. I pray that each and every one who comes across this video, who comes across this call, who has come across this live, gets closely connected to their source and begin to define it for themselves and begin to live it for themselves so that they can experience a life of abundance. Pray all these things in God's name. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Oh. So, thank y'all for joining. I'm going to try to end this live and I'll have my next newsletter out Friday. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shauna. I appreciate it. I appreciate y'all. And yes, thank you, thank you. I shall see y'all on the flip side. I will be going ahead and posting this shortly. Peace.